Good evening and welcome to the October 13th, 2025 Economic Development and Planning Committee meeting. First item on our agenda is public participation, and seeing none, we'll go ahead and move into approval of the minutes. You guys have had a chance to review those?
I'll make a motion to approve our minutes from September the 8th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next we'll move into economic development. Mr. Morris?
Thank you, Mr. President. First thing on our agenda, and we got a lot of stuff, and I got a lot of paper in front of you. I apologize, but coming towards the end, we certainly have a lot of things that are starting to come to fruition. We want to make sure we get those done before the first of the year. First in front of you is the TIF development agreement. TIF is this is a development agreement between the City of Wadsworth and Addison property that accompanies the TIF ordinance that's working its way through council right now. And the goal is obviously to time these so the development agreement and the ordinance kind of pass at the same time. Remember what a TIF is. It's a mechanism to pay for public infrastructure out of money that would not exist but for the development. This defines the relationship between the city and the developer. It's prepared by our attorneys with Patton and Boggs, so professionals that are looking at this. And this one is dense in terms of legalese, not for fun reading late at night. But I wanted to point out about 6 things for you to keep in mind when you're reviewing this legalese under this agreement. Under this situation, the city does not issue debt. We don't go for bonds. We don't have those on our books. The debt is issued by the developer. That money is put into escrow, and that escrow account is where they start pulling it from. They can't pull it on their behalf, even though they are the ones that issue the debt. That all has to come through the city, and the city has to sign off that they have done it and completed it in a workmanlike manner before those funds are released. So while the money comes from their debt, it is put in escrow, but we control that escrow until it's done with our satisfaction before we release that money. So how much is it going to be? That's usually a good question to ask. It's not as easy as just saying that. First, I wanted to see what their methodology was. So if you look at one of the exhibits on there, it talks about I want to get it right, $74 million. That's what it would cost right now to do. But they're not going to do all of it right now. What they're going to do is smoke rise and bring smoke rise through as the public improvement right away. But then the water part is the looping portion that's so important isn't going to be done till phase 2, so it's about 2 or 3 years down the road. So giving you a number as to what that's going to be, I can't do. I don't know what they're going to look like. So what we need is a methodology for how are we going to review the numbers when they come in to make sure that it's done appropriately. So we have a baseline, the methodology that they picked for that 2.74 number, but we also have that already in our code. That was the impact fees that we passed earlier last year. It tells us the methodology that, and Glenn wrote that, for determining if there should be reimbursement, and if so, how much. So you're going to look through that development agreement, and you're going to see the methodology for reimbursing them for the public improvements that they make. There's some language in there about 15% that I had questions about. That matches and mirrors the language that's already been passed in our impact fees. So what are we trying to figure out? We're trying to figure out how do we determine what that number is going to be 2 to 3 years down the road when it's actually put in. So that's the third thing I want you to look at. That's what the estimates are going to be from. That's why I don't have a hard number, but rather have a methodology for determining that number. The TIF money, when it comes in, so the TIF money doesn't come in right away. Why? Because it hasn't been developed yet. The increase in property value only comes after there's houses on there. So that TIF money then goes to pay for the bond and pay that money off. But there is an estimate that whereas the money for the improvements is at a certain level, the TIF money is going to be a much higher level. So what we put in the ordinance is that if there's other projects that we decide as public infrastructure that we want to do, we want to pay for, we'd have the money for that. That's the roundabout. That's in the ordinance as well. That money doesn't start coming in, so there's a minimum payment to pay those bonds, and anything left over is ours for public improvements. And if we decide to, we say we don't want to do a roundabout, we don't want to do any other improvements, we can make the TIF down from a 10-year TIF to an 8-year TIF to a 7-year TIF, because there's plenty of money that's been estimated for that TIF. So those are the things I wanted to kind of put in front of you. I can do more of a presentation on what exactly that contract says at Committee of the Whole if you'd like me to. Just let me know what you want to do. Otherwise, I'll just put it up there and talk to them about it. We've talked about this a lot, and I think we get a little bit more every time we talk about it, but let me know if there's anything else you would like to know about this, and whether you want to do it in this committee or whether you'd like to do it in the Committee of the Whole.
Any questions for Mr. Moss?
So, just so I understand, you lost me there for a second.
Sorry.
The TIF, there'll be enough money to take care of the road coming through and the water loop. That's the basic things that we're going to try and do with this TIF.
Yes.
There could be more money available if we needed to use it for the roundabout.
Yes.
The developer would be the borrower of all of that, including the roundabout.
No. So there's a bond that is issued. That bond is going to be there in we have control over that. So there's a pot of money that they're going to be pulling from. They're trying to gauge that number so that it covers the road and the water line. So when the TIF money comes in, a portion of that will go to pay off that bond. Then another portion will go into our account that will just grow and grow and grow. That is the money that would be earmarked for a roundabout or other.
Why wouldn't the bond, this project will add pressure to that intersection. So why wouldn't this be part of the developer's responsibility and the bond?
In order to do that, we would have to increase the bond, have them do the work, all right, because they're the ones that do the work. That wasn't part of what we had negotiated from the start on how we wanted to do this. We thought that this came up kind of at the 11th hour. Can we do this, Tom? And that's why I addressed it as we did. So I have not addressed to them about putting in the roundabout. Keep in mind that the roundabout, my understanding, that's a public improvement, so it's not really my area, but we've got matching funds from the ODOT. So that is matching funds that we have to put in. So I can't have bond money, I don't think, that would go into that. I don't know.
Well, I think critical missing point in this is that improvements at the High Reimer State, they're kind of already warranted. So we can't really assign any to this developer. Yeah, he's adding traffic, but it's already at the point where we know we need to do something.
Aren't we
So
doing a
that-
study to determine that?
There is a study that's being done that we increased for the Shadow Creek one, which is just north of that, I believe, to talk about the pressures of these two developments on that intersection.
I may be wrong, but I thought there was no study, there was nothing that actually said that roundabout was needed, which is one of the reasons why City Council asked for the study to support the roundabout.
I think what it is there's
to
improvements required.
Right.
What are those improvements going to look like? And I think the roundabout was probably one of the preferred improvements because you have such an odd alignment where State comes into Reimer just a few hundred feet, to the east of High. And so it probably made more sense to make some type of oblonged roundabout that could keep traffic flowing at all of those intersections.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Morris?
Okay, that's TIF. That was the first number one on the packet of stuff I gave you.
So, I
Yeah,
apologize, but if we are going to vote to, I think I told you I would support the TIF.
Yes.
But if we support this TIF, I just want to make sure the understanding is, right now, there are dollars available for the road through, the loop, and you're saying also there would be dollars available if we decide to do the roundabout. It would come out of here. We just would have to do it on our own.
Let's do it on our own, and we'd have to wait for the money to come in. Because remember, the TIF money doesn't come in right away. It doesn't come in until the houses are built. So that once the houses are built, there's going to be money coming in. So say we owed, there's $1 million that had to go to the bond. It's not, I'm just throwing money in. But we get $2 million in, so the $1 million would go to the bond, but then there'd be $1 million extra. So could we borrow against that future pool to get a bond to pay for that? I don't know. That's not really my area. But it's not right away, and I don't want to represent to you that it's right away.
So the roundabout would either have to wait for possibly 10 or 15 years until there was revenue, or you would have to put out a note that would be paid for by this TIF.
It wouldn't be 10 years because it's a 10-year TIF, so it would be within that 10 years, definitely. And I think it would probably be within 5 to 8 years. Now, could that be something where we front the money and then we reimburse ourselves when the TIF money comes in? Could be. Could there be?
So, only because I've been on both sides of TIFs, if the property doesn't sell and there aren't real estate lots sold, there could be a shortfall in real estate taxes, correct? Because you got to put a house on, the house has to have value, the value then bumps up the value for the TIF. So, in the TIFs that I were on the other side, the houses didn't happen. It was in 2007. We went for years before the TIF money. In fact, the TIF money is, what is this? So 2005, this project started. TIF money is just starting to funnel through almost 20 years later. What happens in that situation so that everybody in council knows what's going on?
So that was I don't know your situation. I don't know if you issued the bond as the developer or the city issued the bond, but there's that you were dealing with. But in that situation where there is
The city issued the bond. So
okay, so there was a minimum payment that had to go to that bond. So every year the city had to pay that minimum payment to the city. So usually you get a bond, you get more money than you need so that you can make those minimum payments until it starts paying off. So if that's the nightmare situation where nothing goes on, the city's on the hook for the bond, we end up having to pay for those minimum payments for as long as that bond is issued. That's the nightmare. We didn't do that this time. It's the developer's nightmare and all the shift moves to them.
Okay, so I understood that. Now, if the roundabout, that's why I wanted to ask that question. If the roundabout comes into play and we don't have sales of lots and whatever, explain to me what happens there.
So in that situation, we have a bond and there's minimum payments that are being made towards that bond. Nothing gets developed. Then there's no money that would fund the TIF account in the city. So that only the minimum payments, which the developer would have to make, there would be no money for a roundabout if there was no development, because there would be no additional TIF money.
So
That's
worst
why you
case-
look at other funding sources, and like, like the High Street project was paid bulk through ODOT safety funds. And I'm sure those are some of the other issues that need to be explored.
Okay.
How to get this done earlier rather than rely on those TIF payments.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, we've got two proposed developments. We've got Shadow Creek and the Vance Farm, okay? We both know that those developments are going to impact that intersection worse than it already is, okay? Why can't they be required to participate in the cost of that roundabout?
They probably will in terms of the traffic impact fees, but we can't hold them responsible because the need for that improvement's already there. Okay, it's already there under existing built conditions. They're just going to be adding more traffic to it.
But the studies that I read, but the studies I read, the need is only there between 4 o'clock and 6 o'clock in the afternoon and between 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock in the morning, I think it was. Don't quote me on that.
Well, yeah, because they look at the peak hour traffic. That's where the most of the impact's going to come.
But all the rest of it was fine. It was all Class A. D and E didn't start until those particular
To
hours.
those peak hours, right.
Yes.
Right, but that's the case as it is now. It's probably running fine most times of the day. You go up there at peak hours, I bet you're going to find it's operating at a level D. I believe they go A, D, E, and F.
Yes, that's what it is.
So, like I said, it's already in kind of the failing conditions at peak hours
At peak
now.
hours, right.
Right.
Let me answer this question as well, because I think you were onto something Jeff said. I want to make sure we understand that every house that gets built from a farm or whatever affects traffic.
Right.
And we try to capture that cost through our impact fees. So every time there's a house that's going to be built in Shadow Creek, or a house that's built in Vance, or a house that's built anywhere else where there's not already a house, there's an impact fee of $6,200, $2,000 of which goes to traffic. So if the question is, how do we make sure that Shadow Creek's paying its fair share for that circle?
It's $2,000 per house.
It's $2,000 per house.
Okay.
We can apply towards that.
Okay. That answers my question, because I think everyone should share in this, even the development.
They will,
that's
but we
proposed
can't
on
just say,
Lima Road.
right, we just can't go, hey, put it in and we'll somehow reimburse you, because that need's already there at peak hours. But they will be contributing as the homes get built.
Okay.
Well, I want to make sure, because it's,
Yeah.
make sure this is clear. The city is going to be responsible for the bond.
No.
The builder is going to be responsible for the
Yes.
bond. Okay, I want to make sure that that was,
Yeah, I was trying to give a scenario how it's usually
Talk
done,
back and
was
forth.
done it
Okay.
before, but just to be 100% clear, the bond will be issued to the developer through the Port Authority or some other entity.
But again, I think there's a little confusion here that it will be for the road going across and the
Yes.
loop. If the roundabout is built, the city, and use debt financing, the city would be responsible for that debt.
If the roundabout is built through debt financing, then we would be on the hook for it.
Right.
We could use impact fees to pay for that. We could use, or we could use TIF fees
TIF
that would come in for that.
And the dollars from the,
We have a $2 million grant from the WACA.
Right, these are matching fees. and
Right.
This is, I apologize, I just don't know the roundabout.
But I think the roundabout has $2.5 million worth of NOACA, but it's going to cost the city another couple $1 million from what we were told. So that amount.
That will have some
Yeah.
potential other
Yeah.
sources.
What's the deadline on the NOACA fees or the funding?
I'm not sure what
Well, we've got that study going on.
Right, right.
Fortunately, Glenn's not here today. He is out on vacation, so those are Glenn questions that we can get answered for you if you want.
Okay, any other questions?
Okay, so what the ask is on the TIF is that we move it to committee of the whole, that language, so that we can continue our discussion at committee of the whole, and ultimately, if we're going to do it, get a vote for it.
I'll make a motion to move the tax incentive financing ordinance to committee of the whole.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next up is the community investment grant. Back in 2025, well, about a year ago probably, we were talking about budgets for the economic development. There was $75,000 appropriated for a community improvement grant, some type of grant situation. We have not spent that yet. I was not comfortable with the mechanism for awarding it. So we held off until we could get the CIC, which ultimately has agreed to be that mechanism to do it. So it has still sitting in our accounts. It has not been appropriated, but a lot's happened between now and then. So I wanted to find out if council is still something that you're comfortable with doing. So one of the questions I received is what's the purpose of the grants? Obviously, we're taking money, public funds, and we're directing them at small businesses. So typically, we don't do that. But what makes this different? What are the goals we're trying to achieve by doing this? So the first goal you always see is to stimulate the economy. How do we get people to invest in, say, our downtown or the south part of town when they haven't invested in the past? They just kind of let it roll and kind of let it go. The theory is that if you give them a grant to do something, that they will put their own money in and kind of prime the pump. Sometimes it works better than others. So we talked about it last time, the kind of the history of this. Sometimes like for the South End, we put in $1 worth of grants, and they put in about $1.60's worth of improvements. But then for the restaurant one, we put in $1 and they put in $23. So there's a range when we give monies of how much economic development we stir from direct investment in those people's businesses. But that's the first one, is to stimulate the economy. The second one you read about is it benefits the community. The beautification doesn't just help the business, but it helps the properties around the business. So think of Kreitz. I think I was eating at Kreitz for a long time, but now you get to Water Main, and it's a much different vibe. It not only helps Water Main, but it helps that whole corridor down below. Water Main was a recipient of our grants, where he actually invested in his property thanks to what we did as a city. It doesn't just do beautification, though, and Wadsworth it certainly looks a lot nicer, I think, cleaner, painted, and with awnings and vibrant, but it also prevents blight. So nothing ruins a commercial district like a property. I think Longfellow's, how you got that property there that just wasn't doing anything, it was just abandoned. That brings down property values from everything. So if you could prevent that blight, there is a advantage to that as well. So you could also push as a city for different uses. We don't have any restaurants downtown. We're going to push for restaurants, so we're going to make them as part of a grant process. That was the REAP. So last time at EDMP, I gave you some historical information, some context to help you decide if the juice is worth the squeeze. So prior to pushing out this one, I wanted to get a sense from council is to, has things changed? Do you still wish to have something like this for a grant? We've got near 100% capacity downtown, so that's good. We don't have a lot of open spaces, not a lot of blighted areas. So is there a problem? First question, and does the grant, as I've spelled it out, solve that problem, would be the second question. So that's why I was going to put it out for a resolution to the council. I don't need authorization, we already got that, but I want a resolution to determine if this is something you want to do or something you don't want to do. Either way is okay, but that would be a resolution for the committee of the whole, so you can speak with one voice.
Who selects the recipients of these grants, and is there like a cap? So somebody doesn't get all of the funding?
Absolutely. So the $75,000 is the total of the program. The way it's proposed is that there's a match. So you put in $10,000 worth of work, then we'll reimburse you up to 50% of that, up to $5,000. So the maximum per unit is $25,000, and the match is 50% under this proposal. Who decides? The decision before was an administrative decision. I wasn't comfortable with that, so we moved it to the CIC, which is the Community Improvement Corporation, which is a semi-governmental, quasi-governmental 501c3 that has the mayor, service director, it has president of city council, it has the auditor, it has 4 people that are from the community, a lawyer, Bill Lyron, Brandon Davis is a lawyer, Max Miller, and Ron Pato from the Huntington Bank. So I wanted them to decide because I thought that was a good kind of no questions that these people are just trying to do good for the city.
Yeah, I was the one that asked the question, of course.
You did.
And the reason for that is I'm not sure why this, first off, I'm not a big believer in taking taxpayer dollars and pushing it into a grant when you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 other organizations doing the same thing. Western Reserve Community Fund, USDA Rural Economic Grant Fund, Jobs Ohio and Economic Grant Fund, Vibrant Communities Grant Fund, USDA Rural Economic Development Grant Fund, Ohio Department of Development Grant Funds, and I think the Medina Economic Development has something as well. So there are other entities doing that right now. Not taxpayer money. It's coming from other sources. So why would the city want to put money in? The other problem I have is if the city does want to do it, then let city council decide where the $75,000 goes, not, why push it into another outside entity? And I'm just not a big believer in it. I did a study. I paid for a study for the University of Akron. I'll just read you a section of it. The dominant economic forces that shape our world have evolved. Ohio largely continues pursuing an economic development strategies designed around economic forces from a century ago. A century ago was we try and buy and pay for people to come in. I can get you the entire study if you want, but it says one that tries to change prevailing economic winds instead of using them to move forward. Ohio holds steadfast to hope that using economic development subsidies and tax abatements to attract business will return Ohio to its former place. Instead, year after year, the winds of economic change push Ohio further and further behind. The reason I read that to you is that was a study that said giving money out does not do what it used to do. What makes people come here is having a community that is, what's the word they use, that is much stronger for them to be here. And I think those are all the reasons to be here, whether it's employment, whether it's all those things. So I'm still, look, I mean, I'm just one, but I can't see taking city money, taxpayer money, moving it into another fund where city council loses control of it, and then allowing other people to make decisions. If this is something city council wants to do, just vote on it one on every time you want to do it. I'm also a big believer we need economic development funds in the city, but they should be loans. Low income, you know, I'll go back to what President Trump said a long time ago. Why do we keep giving money out? Why don't we give money out and get loans and get something back in return? So the one thing, I'll give you an example, I believe that when we do this renovation downtown, these businesses are going to need some help, but I don't think it should be grant money. I think we should give them low income, low interest loans over 20, 30 years. Give them an opportunity to pay it back because they're going to be strapped with some issues.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that when we get to the budget part, that specific thing as to what we can do as a city, what we can do as a CIC that may be different to address that problem. But this is exactly the conversation that I wanted to have as to the grants, to see if you had the appetite for it, so to speak. So that's why, you know, with your permission, we could have a resolution as to whether or not we do something like this, and then have a vote for everybody.
Sure. No, I agree. I said my comments would be that. And you know, the other thing, I think I saw it in here when I read through, I mean, granting somebody even $75,000, even though I know that wouldn't happen, if that business fails, is there any recapture of that money? Once it goes to the CIC, there's no recapture. It would be through the CIC would make that decision.
Yeah, is there clawback provisions? Yes, for different types of things, and we're going to talk about the clawback when we talk about the next thing. So all great comments that we're talking about. There's flexibility with the CIC, but yeah, that's a concern. So with that, the request would be is I haven't prepared a resolution yet, but get some resolution to see what council wants to do on that. If this is a universal a resolution to pass it as is, and then allow council to amend it to whatever they want it to be, I'm happy with it. I can prepare it for next council.
Do you want to see the resolution on committee level?
No, I think if the need is to move it quickly, take it to committee of the whole.
I'll make that motion to move the resolution for the CIG to committee of the whole.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Right?
Aye.
Okay.
You're going to prepare a resolution. It's not.
It's going to be a resolution that adopts it as is, with the understanding that that can be amended. So at the committee level, you could amend it to say.
So you're talking about the resolution that's already in here?
There's not a resolution in there. No, not right now.
Okay.
I did not prepare one yet.
So you're going to do a resolution, just so I understand, adopting as you have this community investment grant spelled out now?
Yes,
Okay.
with an idea that that can be amended at that level to whatever you
Or
want.
voted down.
Or voted down.
Yeah. Okay.
Or if you want me to change it, I can amend it at that point.
I had a lot of phone calls the last round with this.
That people want it, people don't want it, people are concerned about it.
some concerns on how it was handled, so I
Yeah.
just,
The phone calls I received about that, we've addressed by having not an internal, but rather a very public meeting. But that might not be all the concerns you have, so.
And I'm still receiving calls.
it's not a dead issue.
That is not right.
So that's a way forward on that is all I'm looking for. The next one is the parking lot. That is number 3. So just so we all know, we're talking about the same parking lot. Well, in the beginning of the year, one of the issues that was presented to me was city-owned property that nobody is using. Get it back on the tax rolls, or get it to be used for economic development. And in particular, this parking lot, I think Mr. Rosberg brought up, was the parking lot that is north of Grace Lutheran Church, south of Remax. There's one kind of square back there that is in bad shape. Engineers have told me that it's going to be about $50,000 to repair that, and that just didn't seem like it was high on the priority of the city to repair because there's no access to High Street off of it. The only access is off an alleyway to Pardee. So if we were to repair it, it would just be used by the local businesses around it, and then we have to maintain it, we have to plow it, we have to take care of it. So it doesn't make a lot of sense for us to put in all that money for somebody else's benefit. So typically if there's property that we don't believe is being used by the city and we want to get rid of it, or we want to move it, we do it by statute, by a auction, and we sell the property off. We can't have that clawback provision you were talking about in that situation. We're just getting rid of it to the highest bidder. My concern is if we just move it, somebody's going to buy it that doesn't have any intention of fixing it and just going to leave a blighted parking lot there for parking their boat or parking whatever. I don't think that's the best use of the property. So how do you avoid that? Well, one thing that can avoid it is if you use the Community Improvement Corporation as your agent, as the city's agent to try to sell this property to an entity that you know is going to use it for the way you want it to be used. That was what the memorandum I prepared for it. And what am I talking about? Look, if you want to purchase this property, I want you to be the adjacent property owners, and there's about 6 or 7 of them who have expressed some level of interest in this. And in order to do it, you have to repair it within 12 months, I think, or 18 months, up to our standards or our levels, so that I know that it's not going to be blighted. If you don't, it reverts back to the city. The CIC's involvement in this only is as an agent for the city. It is not as they're not getting any of the money out of it. They're not doing any different portion for it other than acting as the city's agent. And if they do it, they can sell it just not to the highest bidder, but with some conditions on it that are being built. That's the rationale behind it, so we can get it off, put it on the tax rolls, and get some investment in it so that those properties, whether it be the Grace Lutheran Church, whether it be Mr. Corwin's building that is directly adjacent, or somebody else can use it.
We're talking behind the old AAA, that building that AAA used to be behind, yeah, okay.
It's got a curb and then
Yep.
it looks like it just continues on there. It's used 0
Right.
now, except for one of those neighbors that owns property, parks his boat back there periodically. And we have to shoot.
So if I understand you right, they're just an agent. If the property sells, whatever, 5,000, 50,000, whatever the number is, who cares? It goes to the city.
Yeah.
What does CIC get for doing it? Nothing? They get a fee? Do they?
We have talked about what should a fee be so that we can keep this entity going forward. We've talked about whether there's some agency, whether it be a 10% fee or something. We have not come to a conclusion at the CIC level as to what that would be, but fair market.
But the only reason for this, and it sounds, I mean, otherwise you got to put up for sale, highest bidder can buy it for whatever price, and then you're saying they can just leave it go. If you go through the CIC, they can require, if it's purchased, it has to be brought to a certain standard.
Yes.
And if they buy it and they don't bring it to the standard, it's going to be an agreement that the property comes back to the city.
Yeah. So
Where do the proceeds go? General fund, where do the proceeds go?
that's a wonderful question that I don't know the answer to. That would be like test that question or a Matt question as to where that would go to.
Okay,
I would assume it would be general fund, but I don't know.
okay.
Okay, so I can prepare or have the law department prepare the legislation appointing the CIC as the agent for that bidding process and creating the contract, which would have the clawback provision, if that's what you want me to do.
I would support that.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Sure.
I'm concerned about the 12-month period of time. If we sell this, and it was to be an asphalt lot, we know the asphalt plant shut down in November. That lot has been in total disrepair for over 10 years, and I think 12 months could be squeezing by the time we get the engineering, the zoning, and get a contractor in there. I think you're pretty much squeezing somebody tight, and it could flop on you.
I'm trying to see if I recognize that, and
It does say within
It
12
says
months.
within 12
it
months.
says 12. So yeah,
I would like
we
to
can
see-
move that to 18. We could say that we'll have one with written permission, give you another year to make sure that they're on the process.
I would just ask that you add something like that in there, because 12 months to do a project like that, we don't get anything done in 12 months.
Yeah. So not a bad thought. I'll put that in my
Thank
notes.
you.
By the way, I would support move. I don't understand why there's even a closed-end time. I mean, if they hold it for 2 years and they don't do it, you give it enough time so that you can claw it back.
Yeah, when you have those open-ended ones, I'm always concerned that we forget about it, and it just
Yeah.
exists in a file somewhere. So I'd like to have some type of tickler system where after 1 year, after 2 years, or whatever that may be. But,
And if nothing happens for how long, how do you know when to go after them to try and get it back?
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
so that's clean if they're, yeah, okay.
So I guess I would go ahead, and I'd be in favor of moving that forward with a 2-year period.
Second.
Bringing it to committee of the whole.
Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, next up is 4. That is the CRA and Job Creation Grant. We have limited industrial land left in the city, but one did come up. That was the UPS when that went out on Corporate Parkway. There has been some interest in people coming in to fill that space. And one company that had some interest was S&L Lumber, and they looked at our incentives that we do offer through council and wanted to talk about those as well. They are a millwork and lumber supplier. They are throughout Ohio and surrounding states. They do not have a presence here in the immediate area. Most of their presence is in Columbus. There are 2 programs that has been established through council that they were interested in looking at. One is the Community Reinvestment Agreement Area Program, and that's the property tax abatement. There's a schedule that periodically we set. I can't remember when the last time we set it for, but under those terms, that's a 40% reduction. The 40% is based on how much they are going to invest, and they're bringing in $1.3 million of infrastructure and expansion, actually building more on that property. Under the terms that have been set by council, that's a 40% abatement. And then the second part of that is how much of new payroll is that? Because that depends on the year according to the matrix. And their estimated payroll is 23 full-time jobs at a payroll of $1.4 million per year. So decent paying jobs, a good company to come into the city of Wadsworth. That is the CRA portion of it. They also have the job creation grant portion of it. That is for payroll tax. And under the program that was set up through council, that is based on $1 to $2 million of payroll that's eligible for the 5-year period for the 40% abatement. So if you look at the contract, there's blanks in it. And the reason why there's blanks in the contract is because the real question is, when do you want year 1? When you build up and you have 20, 20, and 20, do you want year 1 to be when you got 60, or do you want the immediate relief when there's 20 for the different period of years. So we're still in discussion about how they want to proceed on that, but because if they are going to decide to pull the trigger and come to Wadsworth instead of some other choices, we have those incentives to be competitive with those other cities. So I'm not immune to what you just read, that cities are cutting their own throats because you offer a lot of these abatements to compete with everybody else in the city, and it just brings everything down.
Right.
But if we aren't competitive with those other cities, then Wadsworth just gets left behind and not anything. So I'm very sensitive to that, but that is a program that's been created already by council.
Mr. Morse, is this all manufacturing in the lumber to supply to other yards, or will there be any public retail there as well?
Not public retail, that would bring it into the commercial. This is only applicable for industrial.
Okay.
It is for the middleman, the contractors coming in for the
Processing.
millwork and the lumber, so
Okay.
selling doors and other things.
So it looks like this program was developed in 2020 by the
Yeah, it's
council.
been renewed a couple times
Yeah.
for different parts.
So just so I understand
Yeah,
it,
please.
City Council, you're telling me City Council approved a 40% abatement in real estate taxes?
We're talking CRA, or talking about job creation grant?
CRA.
The CRA, there is a table that if you invest so much money, it goes to 40%.
So who loses that 40%? Because you've got a lot of people that feed off of the real estate taxes.
Yeah, payroll tax, you're looking at schools, you're looking at the city, you're looking at...
Well, the reason I asked that question, so the schools are okay with this? Everybody's okay with abating 40%?
When we're talking about when does a school have a right of objection, they have a right of objection at 75%. Once they get to that level, then they have a right to object.
That's in a TIF, but you're saying that counts?
That's also for CRAs too.
Okay, so it
They
counts.
changed that across there, so county is the other one that would receive money on property tax.
So how much does the city lose in a 40% abatement? 'Cause
Depends on the property value as to what it ultimately comes into. I don't know the answer to that question until I know.
yeah, can you get me that number on a $100,000 valuation, what a 40% abatement costs the city? Because, I mean, that's really, the decision council should be making is, what are they willing to give up? In dollars to the city. I mean, again, if the schools aren't complaining and the other people aren't complaining, I guess the key should be, what does the city lose? And I realize this has already been passed. I just want to make sure I understand it. Now, on the job side, which is kind of interesting, because we are definitely competing with Jobs Ohio and everybody else. Who monitors that? I mean, Jobs Ohio has enough trouble trying to monitor those numbers. And who is set to take care of that? I mean, that's a job in itself. I mean, somebody's got to look at the payroll, somebody's got to count. Who's doing that?
We have an annual tax incentive review council, the TURC, that consists of a group of people, including the county auditor, including the Doug Beeman with the schools, and a number of other people that are associated or that are with that. And I want to make sure I get this right. The payroll tax one is monitored also by our own auditors department. The CRA is primarily a state function where they monitor it for that purpose. So this is an internal one for the tax or for the job creation grant.
So on the payroll side, it's payroll tax, I guess. So that does not, the city doesn't collect payroll tax.
We collect this tax.
Oh, you're talking about payroll income tax.
Yes.
You're not talking about payroll tax then. You're talking about the income tax on payroll.
Yes.
Ah, okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so again, the city would lose whatever the number, I mean, again, can you give me that number, what you estimate? Because you did estimate the payroll that you would expect from this.
Yeah, 1.4 million.
1.4 million, so it's 1.4% of 1.4 million. And that's what the city would be.
For a period of time, for 5 years, I believe, is what
And if they don't come, we get nothing. We get zero.
that is the theory of the case, right? 60% of something is much more than 0% of nothing.
You don't have to argue with me on that. I would agree with that. That's how we got the TIF done on 261. But again, there's a monitoring. You're saying the city, it doesn't cost the city to monitor it, and there are enough requirements inside of that that if they don't come, there's
Yeah, the payroll, particularly, I rewrote that contract last year, and that has clawbacks too. So if you're not hitting your number that you're saying you're doing, so then you are not only going to be not eligible for it, but you may not claw back from prior years owed.
I think if you can just refer I'm assuming we're going to move this committee a whole, if you can just get me the number of what you anticipate the payroll tax.
Yeah, I will do that to a $100,000, you know,
Yeah.
just because I don't know what the raise of the property value would be. See what I mean?
Yeah, right. And then on the payroll, it's just 1.4 million times 5 years.
You got it.
Mr. Chairman. I've talked to economic development, Medina County Economic Development, and they say there's a huge need for existing facilities. And we are sitting at the interstates of 71 and 77. So this type of business that is for wholesale would be looking for existing facilities so they don't have to build tremendous amounts. That's a need they talk about all the time. They're always looking for companies are always coming. So who are we competing with? I mean, are we competing with ourselves here to give them this money?
If you're talking about who are we competing with, we're competing with Medina, who has this exact program, we're competing with Brunswick, who has this exact program, and every other city.
But do they have a facility already built that meets most of their needs? And that's the problem. That's what we have and they don't. Plus the interstates.
The question is then, can we assume that another business is going to come in if we say no to these people?
And have you talked to economic development and see what businesses are acquiring about those type of Medina County economic development?
I've talked to certainly the realtor who's putting that up, who's trying to sell this property to a variety of people. There's been other people that have been interested in it. None have come to this point where they're ready to buy it and then put in not only purchase the property, which you wouldn't be able to get any of our CRA money if you just bought the property, but they're buying the property and putting on and expanding. It's that expansion that triggers
I
that.
understand that, but like I said, the existing facilities is what is in demand, and so with minimal additions. That's what's in demand, I understand.
So it's been about 8 months, and this is the first one that's come forward to me, so I don't know that they're...
And I think in the last 8 months, business has been putting things, capital investments on hold, because they're unsure.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I'm not sure the question, if that's a question. The question is there another one in the wings that's ready to go if they walk?
Or is there other...
I don't know that answer.
I think the best way of explaining that, and I would agree, is today, one of the problems in Ohio is all we do is compete with every other community to pull businesses from them. One of the biggest problems in Ohio is we're not bringing new business in. There would be, and there's plenty of studies that show that. All we do is go after businesses right around us. It would be great to have some type of incentive to bring business in from outside the state. And I know that's difficult, but that's the job of the state. The state doesn't do a very good job of it, but at some point in time, just cannibalizing each other around each other is never going to be the good answer for economic development. So, but it's exactly what happens.
Yeah, and I just don't want to be left out by not having anything. Because you're the first one to die. So if there is something about this program that you don't like, the CRA, maybe we should move those numbers up, maybe those years should be different, then let me know, because we can change those. But those are the programs that have been set by council already.
Okay. Any
So
other questions?
with that being said, if you could, move those over to committee of the whole. We can certainly talk about it there.
I'll make a motion to move an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter a community reinvestment agreement and a job creation grant with the Straight and Lamp Lumber Company, 478 Parker.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I'm sure you're just tired of hearing from me. I apologize, but the last thing we have is the budget. That's the last page on your packet. Relatively speaking, my budget is modest, but there are policy decisions that need to be made. The final number, if you look at the top, is around $300,000. It's the same from 2025 to what's proposed in 2026, but we shifted some of those around a little bit. So I pulled off on the bottom all the line items that were $5,000 and more. Those are more interesting. You get down to the pencils and the other smaller stuff if you'd like to. We certainly can do that. But these are the big ones that we need to talk about to see how we want to go forward. The first one, they're under contractual services, is the largest portion of the budget, is the SIG, the Community Improvement Grant that we just talked about. In 2025, that was at $75,000. I'm proposing that we do not have one next year, if we have it this year. We do not have one next year, and see how things go. So moving that down to 0, so there would be no Community Improvement Grant next year. The second thing on there is the summer concert series. The summer concert series we've had for the past 2 years at $25,000. We supplement the Main Street, who was putting on that summer concert series. Kind of the theory of the case before I started was we didn't have a concert series. We wanted something that was a little more impressive, and a group that was the Guild bid to be that person to do that. There was $25,000 allotted to them. They used that. Had some moderate success. The Guild went out of business and is no longer there. Then Main Street Wadsworth took it over. There was $25,000 this past year to help them get that program started. They did get that started. Now they've got sponsors that are coming in and sponsoring them. So the goal was always to reduce it down to 0, but I didn't want to do it suddenly, so I was going to move that down to $10,000, down $15,000 for the summer concert series. The IDEA grant is the third one. The
By the way, on the
IDEA,
second one, is there any way of, you do have an entity here now in the city that's going to be promoting concerts. Is there any way to get them to,
which entity are you talking
I don't know, who's the group?
Oh, the square, Wadsworth Square?
Wadsworth Commons,
Foundation or
down with them.
Is there any way to get them to take that over and put the concerts?
The summer concert series was always a downtown event, which is going to have, and I know that's downtown, but to have those in the Pocket Park, to have some events right down there in the Dora. They've got enough on their plate to have them do additional concerts across the street, but I can certainly talk to them.
I'm just saying, they might say, hey, we'll take that over, and it's $10,000 savings to the city.
I'll talk to them. But that's where the money comes from, so maybe, if we have it but don't need to spend it because somebody else is picking it up, all the better. The IDEA grant is the third one. This is, I've been doing this, probably this is my second year. It's been on for as long as I've been doing this. It's been on for 3 or 4 years. I inherited this. There was a situation a while back where, because of some hiccup with engineering at the time, there was an additional money that had to be done on an industrial park. And we didn't have money, and it had to go through the process, and it was a mess. My understanding, I was not involved in that. So they've always had $75,000 appropriated in case we got into a situation where we needed something to help an industrial person with some type of fund that needed to happen because of our engineering. That's what it's there. That's the $75,000. I've never used it. It is out there though, so I've continued it on for what it's worth.
If there was a problem, couldn't you, and that was 0, couldn't you come to city council and
I
say,
could go for a supplemental appropriation at that time. It would be a little slower, but I could do it.
unless it's an emergency, you can see if the city council would act as quickly as
Suspend the
possible.
call, yeah, I mean, you could,
That is what it is though, and that's been on there for a while, and we've continued on there, so I just continued it on. Look, see what it is, that's what it is.
Just so you know, I'm not a big fan of having, whatever that we would call it, I guess we'd call that a slush fund.
It's got a pejorative term, maybe a little walking around money or something, I don't know.
Has it been used since it's been put in place?
It's never been used in my knowledge.
no,
It is $75,000. The maximum is $25,000 per event, so it's not like it can be used at one time. And to be honest, I haven't looked at it enough to know the mechanisms that are involved, who is judging it, who's reviewing it. So that is what the IDEA grant is.
Kind of like a piece
You
of
could just come back for
clothing you haven't
supplemental.
used for years, you throw it away. I'd zero that out if it was up to me, but
well, and if somebody needed it in a hurry, we couldn't give it to them in a hurry because we don't know how to give it away, so.
There may be a methodology.
Right, but,
I'm not
yeah.
familiar with it because it's not my program that I've gone through. So that is something that is out there. The last one's the CIC, and we talked a little bit about this already. It's a separate look. Right now, the CIC is funded by other mechanisms other than City Council. We get an annual donation from St. Ed's with an earmark on that money to go to downtown improvements or downtown investments. So it has $70,000 or approximately $70,000 that it is looking to use for this downtown project. We've got it coming up. We've got something coming up next year. So that is separate money. That doesn't have anything, that wasn't council's money, that there wasn't taxpayers' money. That's its own money. And so what it's looking to do is anytime you move utilities or do some type of major infrastructure, like you were talking about, Mr. Renacci, earlier, there's costs to the property owner. Maybe not even an advancement or you're not upgrading, it's just a cost. So when we look at the southwest parking lot, and this is what the CIC is looking at, the southwest parking lot is moving the above utilities to below utilities, and that's going to cost every one of the property owners that hooked up to it between $3,000 and $5,000. It's not going to be better, it's just going to be $3,000 to $5,000 because we're moving it from above ground to below ground. So what can we do as a CIC, and this isn't your question, but this is a CIC's question, to try to diffuse that pain? Could it be a grant? And that's one way of doing it, where we match some type of money for that. Could it be a loan? And I've been in contact with Mr. Payo got me hooked up with someone from the Developmental Finance Authority over in Akron that can, we don't administer loans very well as a city, that's not what we do. So we can transfer that to another agency where they're going to administer the loans, and it's a $5,000 loan. I don't want to do it over 15 years, over a year, just kind of space that out. So we're looking at different methods for doing that so we can take the sting away from the improvement. It's something we talked about earlier, right from the start. How can we help them when we've changed the way that utilities work? We're going to have a lot more of that. Southwest parking lot I can cover with CIC money, but we're going to have a lot more of that if we do the downtown improvement. That's not with electric, because electric's typically in the back, but in the front you're going to have water hookups. What happens if it's a lead line? You're going to have sewer hookups that typically are the responsibility of the building owner. So if this council wants to have funds available for helping them out, either by creating a loan system, creating a grant system. We don't do that as a city. We can do that as a CIC, because the CIC can invest in private property, city can't. So if that's something you want to do, that's where I plug the money to try to help the downtown businesses that may have additional costs as a result of us upgrading the utilities. Instead of doing assessments like we did back in the day, have another pool of money to pull that from. So that's where that CIC money comes from.
So why wouldn't you zero that out for now? And then when the actual idea, because I'm in favor of it, but when the actual idea comes about, you come to City Council and say, City Council, I would like to appropriate, you could say, we talked about this in a budget, but you wanted me to wait. I'd like to put I'd like to get $125,000 to help the downtown. And this way, City Council's going to know what you're spending on.
Well, you always know, because I'll, not going to hide anything. But this was my budget, that's why I brought it to you. Can we do it zero and then do a supplemental appropriation? Sure, you can. It doesn't have any difference in me, as long as you remember this conversation and don't say, what are you talking about?
It'll be in the minutes, but I think at that point in time, you can go back and say, because what if it's 50,000 and you got 125,000? What if it's 75,000?
Sure.
What if you need 300,000? I mean, I'm just throwing numbers out. You can come to City Council and say, look, we've got 10 businesses down there, they all need X. We'd like to do this, we're not going to do the loan program, we're going to do it through this other organization, because I heard you say we're not good at that, which is probably true. And then you get City Council just approval.
Yeah, I think the loan process is going to be through the CIC, so that's the way I'm working through it. So, that's true. Happy to do it that way. It
I
makes
don't know what
no
the
difference
other
to me.
members think, but I think this way you're,
But I want you to know what I'm doing, and I tell you what I'm doing in the future by putting it in the budget. I don't want to sneak things in on you. So this is what we've talked about right from the start.
I mean, I like that idea. I mean, just because then we know real dollar amounts. I mean,
Yeah. We're trying to estimate it
Like
right
you said.
now, and it's really hard to do because I don't know how many of those are going to break when they
Sure.
hook up to the next one. It's a question.
you just answered the reason why I'd vote no, because you don't know what the number is just right. But I probably won't be here when you bring it back, but I think city council should be told this is what we're doing and here's the plan and get a vote on that.
Yeah. It's not an open checkbook, though. Just because they need a certain amount of money, we have a limited money that would be available. So I'm not trying to bind
I
us.
understand, but I have heard in the last month and a half too many times, well, remember, city council appropriated this last year already. And the question should be, well, and I'm not saying you've said that, I've heard it a number of times, and the answer should be, well, if city council appropriated, they should know exactly what it's being used for, and so, anyhow.
That's it for me. Those are the 5. I apologize for taking all your time.
So what are we doing?
Would you talk about Main Street?
Oh, the Main Street is, I apologize. The Main Street is the other big ticket item that typically comes in. We've been sponsorships or memberships of Main Street for a number of years, and $35,000 is what we've always been. So that comes out of my budget.
We were originally higher than that, right, when we first started with?
Originally, they went 50, and then they said, well, we're going to take out some, and then you're going to do the concert series on a different line item. But as long as I've been here, it's been 35.
By the way, it was 50 when I was mayor, so I do understand that. The question is, do we monitor what they're doing, how they're doing, what they're doing with the money, or are we just handing them 35?
I'm a member of their committee. I know Mr. Stegmeyer is also a member of their committee. Yes, I don't audit them. I'm not
Well, how much do
auditor.
they spend and how much do they spend and how much of the 35 is their budget?
I don't have control of it.
About a third.
No, what's the total budget of downtown and how much, so what's the total and how much does 35,000 contribute to the total? Is it 100%?
Oh,
No,
Main Street's money?
It's about 30%. The 35,000 is about a third of their budget.
Okay, so they spend about 115,000 and we contribute about 35,000.
They issue the annual report too.
What is the requirement to be a Main Street community? Is there not a requirement that the city needs to contribute a certain percentage? a certain
There
amount
is.
of money?
There is.
And anybody know what that is?
When we first were,
It's approximately.
Grant, I believe it's 30.
About a third? Okay, thank you.
Does Main Street ever report, I mean, it sounds like you got one member of council. Does Main Street ever report to city council? I mean, or is it just Tom, you're on the board and you?
Typically, she comes in, the executive director schedules a meeting and comes in to the council meeting. I think we've seen
annual report.
Right.
Okay, anything for Mr. Morris? All right, Mr. Kaiser, you're
All I
up.
need is 3 minutes. Just give you quick updates on 3 items. First, there's a couple zoning amendments. Ordinance 25-176, those are revisions to sections 154.035 and .038 of the zoning code. Those are the cluster home provisions and PUD regulations. These corrections are really meant to fix some inconsistency between those two sections. They basically regulate and allow the same types of projects. There were some hiccups in there that we had one set of standards for single-family lots and one set of the code, different set in the other. I gave you handouts today, so you don't have to look through the whole ordinance. You'll see the changes that are in red. Ms. Darlington indicated that a public hearing has been set at council for November 18th, so this will still be on the agenda on November 10th if there's any questions or comments. Mainly a housekeeping item, also addressing some situations that have arisen over the years, for instance, with condominiums or cluster developments, homes that don't have typical lot lines. They don't have a typical lot lines and typical setbacks. How do you address where should that house be located? So we've introduced the term, I think it's building separations for those types of things that basically mimic the setback requirements that you would have on a typical fee simple lot. So if there's any questions now, great. Otherwise, if you want to take a look at it and anything to discuss, we can discuss in November. Okay. And then the final 2 pages of that handout, there's another item called the Shadow Creek Planned Unit Development. That's on Planning Commission's agenda. There will be a public hearing at council tonight. And again, as when we updated the PUDs earlier this year, we turned them into, they're really zoning map amendments. So there will be public hearings at the Planning Commission and at City Council. The last 2 pages in your handout shows a concept for this development that the developers showed us back when they proposed annexation in 2022 versus what they are proposing now. And the plans are pretty similar. I think the concept plan had about 130, 135 lots. The PUD plan they have before the Planning Commission and Council has about 143 lots. Both of those are less than what they could develop under the current zoning. I think given the existing R1 and LDR on these properties, they could have up to 173 lots. But anyhow, it is going through the Planning Commission review starting tonight. Question I had for you, or comment, the reason you're hearing about it now, I know that we had scheduled a public hearing, it got canceled, and I know some of the neighbors who were notified sent letters to council, and certain council members responded, well, I haven't heard of this yet. And typically you're not going to, because we have a little bit of a hiccup. If the land were still in the township and coming through the annexation, there would be the whole annexation process, the pre-annexation agreements. You'd have some idea of what happened or what was being proposed. In this case, the land was annexed 3 years ago, and they're just now getting around to coming up with a plan for that property. But I just wanted you to see that what they're showing is very similar to what they showed you 3 years ago and how the site would develop. So anyhow, you're free to attend the hearing tonight. Again,
So anybody that's complaining, this is what was proposed 3 years ago.
that's what's proposed now. The black and white is what was proposed for annexation. When they
Okay.
talked to council and said, if we annex, here's how we want to develop it.
Pretty similar.
It's pretty simple. Yeah. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. Ultimately, Planning Commission would make some recommendation, and then it will go to council with an ordinance, and you set the public hearing and do the notifications. Okay. So those, I don't know if there's any questions about this right now. Just let it play out at Planning Commission. Okay. Then the last item, talking about budgets, planning and zoning budget, I think that's going to be discussed by Matt and Mike tomorrow at the public safety meeting. Right now, the planning and zoning budget is very much reduced because we transferred all of the building permit activity to the county. So we've lost a lot of revenue, but we've also reduced a lot of expenses because we don't have building officials, we don't pay the county to subcontract some of those expenses. So I think that tomorrow at service, that budget will be shown.
Okay, any questions?
Yeah, I just have one question. So if I understand this right, the budget, so I understand the budget process. We're not zeroing out the IDA, we're not zeroing out the CIC out of this committee tonight. So how does the budget roll forward? Does it just roll forward to council and then council approves it and says, well, the committees did their work, or how's this work?
Yeah, typically, I mean, I think you can take, if we decide on this committee, we get, 4 members and say, yeah, we want you to zero that. I think you could zero it now because there's no sense in if we agreed on that. But typically, the line items that have questions, we'll have council meetings where we'll go through, there'll be a big list of ones that we discuss as a group.
So these will come back up again.
If we need to tell them that we want them to come back up again, or we zero them now.
So,
And I'm fine, I mean, I'm fine with zero. I think that makes sense to come back and get it, if they need to. Especially the one that we've never used.
Yeah, but
I agree.
definitely on that one.
so I make a motion, we zero out the IDA grant and the CIC.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That doesn't mean you can't use, it doesn't mean you don't have it, it just means you come back to council if we need it.
I understand. Just, the discussion needs to be had, and that's.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So the 50 that you have in it now, you will still have, which is zeroing out the 125 that you had budgeted for next year.
Correct.
Okay, any other questions? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Or adjourn.
You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth Community Television.